There is. There are. English level A1 A2 grammar. A1 elementary at 2 pre-intermediate. Using there is and there are. We use there is and there are to say that something exists, or doesn't exist. There's a very big park in my city. There aren't any street markets. There are no restaurants in the station. But there's a cafe and a bank. Affirmative sentences. We use there is for singular and there are for plural. There is one table in the classroom. There are 3 chairs in the classroom. There is a spider in the bath. There are many people at the bus stop. Affirmative sentences. We also use there is with uncountable nouns. There is milk in the fridge. There is some sugar on the table. There is ice cream on your shirt. Affirmative sentences. Contractions. The contraction of there is theirs. There's a good song on the radio. There's only one chocolate left in the box. Affirmative sentences. You cannot contract there are. There are 9 cats on the roof. There are only 5 weeks until my birthday. Affirmative sentences. We can say there's instead of there is. We often say this when we speak. But there is no short form for there are. There's a restaurant in the station. There are 2 cafes. Affirmative sentences. When we are speaking informally and make a list of things, we often use there is or there's instead of there are. There's a cafe, a supermarket and a bus stop on my street. Instead of there are a cafe, a supermarket and a bus stop on my street. Negative sentences. For negatives, we use there isn't or there's not, equals there is not, for singular and there aren't, equals there are not, for plural. There isn't a pharmacy near the hotel. There aren't any restaurants near the hotel. Negative sentences. The negative is formed by putting not after is or are. There is not a horse in the field. There are not 8 children in the school. There is not a tree in the garden. There are not 2 elephants in the zoo. Negative sentences. We almost always use contractions when speaking. The negative contractions are: there's not equals there isn't. There are not equals there aren't. Negative sentences. We often use there isn't a plus singular noun, there isn't any plus uncountable noun and there aren't any plus plural noun. There isn't a cafe near here. There isn't any milk. There aren't any toilets in the park. Negative sentences. There aren't with any. When we want to indicate that a zero quantity of something exists, we use there aren't any. There aren't any people at the party. There aren't any trees in my street. Negative sentences. We also use this structure with uncountable nouns. There isn't any water in the swimming pool. There isn't any sugar in my coffee. Negative sentences. To show that the negative is important, we also often use there is no plus uncountable noun and there are no plus plural noun. It is possible to use there is no plus singular noun, but it's not as common. There's no milk. There are no toilets in the park. Questions. For questions, we say is there for singular nouns and uncountable nouns and are there for plural nouns. Is there a cafe near here? Is there any milk in the fridge? Are there any toilets in the park? Questions. To answer, we say yes, there is, not yes, there's, or no, there isn't, or yes, there are, or no, there aren't. Is there a cafe near here? Yes, there is. No, there isn't. Is there any milk in the fridge? Yes, there is. No, there isn't. Are there any toilets in the park? Yes, there are. No, there aren't. Questions. Again, we use any with plural questions or those which use uncountable nouns. We also use there is. There are in short answers. Is there a dog in the supermarket? No, there isn't. Are there any dogs in the park? Yes, there are. Is there a security guard in the shop? Yes, there is. Are there any polar bears in Antarctica? No, there aren't. Is there any ice cream in the freezer? Yes, there is. Questions. How many with are there? If we want to find out the number of objects that exist, we use how many in the following form. How many plus plural noun plus are there, plus complement. How many dogs are there in the park? How many students are there in your class? How many countries are there in South America? How many Star Wars films are there? Here is a summary of these forms. Affirmative. Singular. There is. There's. Affirmative. Plural. There are. Here is a summary of these forms. Negative. Singular. There is not. There isn't. There's not. Negative. Plural. There are not. There aren't. Here is a summary of these forms. Negative plus a. Any. Singular. Here isn't a, countable. There isn't any, uncountable. Negative plus a. Any. Plural. There aren't any. Here is a summary of these forms. Negative plus no. Singular. There is no. Negative plus no. Plural. There are no. Here is a summary of these forms. Question. Singular. Is there? Question. Plural. Are there? Other verb tenses. We can use there is and there are in many other verb tenses. There was a storm last night. Past simple. There were a lot of cars on the roads yesterday. Past simple. There will be a lot of people at the shopping center tomorrow. Future simple. There is, there are. Affirmative. There is plus singular noun. There is a book on the desk. There are plus plural noun. There are books on the desk. There is plus uncountable noun. There is some milk in the fridge. There is. There are. Negative. There isn't plus singular noun. There isn't a pen on the table. There aren't plus plural noun. There aren't any pens here. There isn't plus uncountable noun. There isn't any juice in the fridge. There is, there are. Questions. Is there plus singular noun? Is there a cat on the chair? Are there plus plural noun? Are there cats on the sofa? There is, there are. Questions. How many plus plural noun plus are there? How many students are there in your class? How many days are there in February? There is, there are. Contractions. There's equals there is. There's not equals there is not. There isn't equals there is not. There aren't equals there are not. Let's practice. There's so much happening. Is there anything much going on at the moment? There are 2 new students in our class. There aren't any good football matches on TV this week. There were fire-breathing dragons in the streets. Were there any accidents? I think there'll be loads of people at the festival. There haven't been many entries for the competition. Happy learning. Thank you for watching.